Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 2, Episode 12, and this was yet another fantastic episode. I'm going to keep saying it, but this second half of SLC has been a 10 out of 10. Now, Lisa Barlow, I'm looking directly at you. Girl, I don't think that you're ready for this reunion because the way you need to be torn up. But y'all, let me not jump ahead. Let's just get right on into this recap because we don't have a minute to spare. So we start this episode right where we left off last week with Lisa spilling the tea about her friend Cameron mortgaging his house and giving Mary and her church $300,000. So now we see a flashback of Lisa and Cameron meeting up and they're talking about Mary. Cameron is telling Lisa all about how Mary's church will beat you down until they get what they want. Cameron continues on by saying that the money was all for Mary's surgeries. Lisa goes on to ask if any of those surgeries were for her odor glands. Now, if you've been watching since season 1, then you know that Mary said that she had gotten her odor glands removed and that was one of her surgeries, okay? But we all know that that's a damn lie. Mary has gotten plastic surgery. She got that nose sized down. She got her skin lightened. Because if you see her pictures from before, Mary was a brown-skinned girl. And a few of her former church members reached out to me last year, and they let me know that for 3 years, Mary had went away from Utah. She was living in New York. And when she came back to Utah, she came back a completely different person. Then Cameron continues by saying that the church wraps your head around this single idea, and they act like it's the difference between you going to heaven or hell. I personally believe everything that Cameron said. A lot of what he's saying goes along with what I've heard from Mary's uncle when he reached out to me last year and other former church members. Mary's obvious love for money doesn't help her case either. So I'm not surprised when I hear that people were emptying out their wallets and their bank accounts to make sure that Mary was dripped in Gucci and gold, okay? It is not a surprise. So now Lisa goes on to say, guys, Cameron tithed a lot of money, and now he feels bamboozled and duped. Bottom line, he doesn't believe in anything that he was told by Mary and the church. And I believe Cameron, okay? I felt him. I cried with him. I understand how he feels. Everybody's looking at Lisa in disbelief. And then Heather questions, why is Lisa still friends with Mary if she believes what Cameron's saying? Lisa gets defensive and she says, I'm just really protective of Cameron, okay? And just because I'm friends with Cameron does not mean that I still can't be friends with Mary. I can be friends with the both of them, okay? So Lisa, here's where I have to get you together because what you're saying makes absolutely no sense. There is no way that I would be friends with somebody who robbed my friend blind. Because if you believe everything that Cameron is saying about Mary, then how can you look Mary in the eye and want to be buddy-buddy with her? That makes no sense. Lisa talks out two sides of her face. She's very manipulative. She thinks that she's a lot more cunning than she is. And it's like, girl, you're out here looking crazy. Lisa continues to show her hand in every single episode. She is a friend to nobody but herself. So Meredith is pissed and she's like, look, I'm not going to sit here and listen to people make questionable digs about my friend with zero facts. So now Lisa's like, have you not been watching the YouTube videos, Meredith? Like there are so many YouTube videos about Mary running a cult. Now Bravo shows all the blogs that have covered all the scandal about Mary. And baby, when that screen showed Layla Lynn's YouTube channel, I was like, OMG, that is fantastic. Shout out to Layla Lynn. She has shown me so much love as a smaller YouTuber, and I am forever grateful. But Layla Lynn is big time, okay? Like, she is that girl, okay? So when I saw her show up on Bravo's screen, I was like, oh my gosh, that is everything. Meredith lets it be known once again that she's not going to sit there and listen to all this craziness about Mary. She goes on to say how Mary has been nothing but kind to her, and therefore she's not going to just sit here and take what they're saying, you know, as the gospel. Regardless of how I feel about Mary, I will say that Meredith sticking up for her and Meredith saying, look, I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe it. I'm going to need a bit more proof. I'm not taking what you're telling me as the gospel truth. You know, Mary has been a good friend to me. She's been kind to me and my family. And because of that, I got her back. That is the definition of loyalty. So now Meredith really gets pissed off and she says, I had a million facts about Jen, but yet nobody wanted to listen to me when I was trying to tell y'all. Then she goes on to say how Jen was really nasty and horrible to her family and nobody seemed to care. Since the conversation is getting super heated, Lisa decides that she's going to bed. She no longer wants any part of this conversation. She's over it. She's tired. Shout out to everybody. She have fun.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun.
I gotta be good.
She goes on to say in her confessional that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on because it's cool for them to all believe the things being said about Jen, but not about Mary. So here's where it really gets good and spicy. Lisa is on her way to her room, or so we think. She ends up in Mary's room, and she's like, Mary, can we talk for a few minutes? I have to just clear the air and get a few things off of my chest. She goes on to say how there's all this weird stuff floating around the internet about Mary and her church, and she needs answers. Then Lisa has the audacity to say that all the other ladies are talking about it. So Lisa's asking Mary if it's true, if all Mary's members call her God or refer to her as God. And Mary says, absolutely not. Like, that's not true. That's a bold-faced lie. We hear Mary telling Lisa that Lisa has to choose. Either she's going to believe them or she's going to believe her. It's her choice. The way I wanted to jump through this TV and just shake Lisa, like, Lisa, you know we just saw you on the patio with all the other ladies, right? You were the one who spilled the tea about Cameron mortgaging his home. So for you to fix your lips and act like everybody else was talking bad about Mary and you just sat there, like, girl, what is wrong with you? So to make matters worse, Lisa decides to tell Mary about her conversation a few weeks ago with Jen. So Lisa goes on to say what Jen told her about how one of Jen's first cousins is terrified of Mary and Mary's church, and how somebody at Mary's church took their life, how some people are on food stamps, and how the majority of the congregation is in fear of Mary. So now Mary's really pissed, and she's like, but that's why Jen is where she's at today, and that's why I'm still sitting here free. Like, don't sit up here and compare me to Miss Jen. Mary, while that might be true, that Jen is where she's at and you are where you're at today, I would still be a little bit nervous if I were you, because there are too many former church members out there who have similar stories about how they emptied out their wallets, how you were awful as a pastor. So I'm just saying, Mary, I don't think that everybody's sitting up here lying about what went on in your church. You might be sitting here free today, but just make sure that you're sitting here free tomorrow. I'm just saying, sis, don't get too cocky, because you very well could be joining Jen in the jailhouse. Just saying. So now we see it's the next day, and we see some chefs in the kitchen, and that breakfast looked amazing. I said, finally, this is how a vacation is supposed to be. Ladies of the other franchises, please take notes, especially Potomac. make sure that there is a chef, okay? Please, because y'all love to have some trips with hardly a morsel of food, or everybody has to make their own breakfast. But I digress. So we see Mary going into Jenny's room, and I was shocked, like, Mary and Jenny? What? But we find out that Mary has a gift from Saks Fifth Avenue for Miss Jenny. It's a thank you for Jenny doing her makeup the night before, and because they talked it out and they hashed out their differences. So now Mary and Jenny are on the same accord and everything is good. So child, Mary bought Jenny these gorgeous Christian Louboutin boots, just stunning, okay? So now Jenny makes a joke in her confessional that if she had known that she was going to get a really nice gift from Mary, she would have talked to Mary weeks ago. Even though Jenny gets on my nerves, I did laugh at that. I was like, okay, Jenny, that is kind of funny. I will give you that. So now we find out in Mary's confessional that Mary had the boots already, and so she grabbed them on her way out the door. And the reason why she gave them to Jenny was because she wanted to lighten her luggage. So now we flip over to Whitney and Heather. Heather goes into Whitney's room and they start talking about the events that went down last night. Whitney says in her confessional that when she went to bed, she heard some laughing in the next room from Heather, Lisa, and Mary. So she's like, hold up, wait a minute. Y'all were just talking cash money shit about Miss Mary. So now, why are you guys laughing like everything is all good? So she wants some answers because she is really confused. So Whitney's like, Heather, I heard you laughing in the room, like what's going on? So Heather's like, girl, they came in my room giddy like two schoolgirls. Mary's handing me a Louis Vuitton purse. I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And for the record, Heather was live tweeting the show, and she said that she did not keep the purse. She gave it back. So Heather says, when Lisa and Mary left my room, Mary said that she was no longer friends with you and how she's now best friends with Lisa. So Whitney says, it looks like Lisa has pinned this all on me, but I'm not taking the fall for it. And this is what Lisa wanted all along. And we know how Lisa is. Lisa's very conniving. She's just very two-faced. She has no loyalty to anybody but herself. And she definitely did put a bug in Mary's ear that this was all Whitney's doing, knowing that she's the one who started everything. Lisa, you in danger, girl. I'm just saying, sis, you think that it's sweet right now. But when it's time for that reunion, it's going to be a whole different story. And I'm going to be here for it with my champagne in tow because you have shown your entire ass. I meant to say this in my last recap, but let me just say this now quickly while it's on the top of my head. I understand completely where Whitney's coming from. I definitely understand her aggravation and irritation with Lisa and Mary. But when it comes to Mary, I want Whitney to stop being so pressed about Mary not wanting to be friends with her. I want Whitney to be at peace when one of these ladies gives her their ass to kiss. There is no way in hell that I will be torn up over anybody saying that they no longer want to be my friend. I can assure you that. Bye. Like all these fabulous people in this world, I promise you, I will be just fine if you want to walk out the door. I need Whitney, if she does come back for season 3, I need her self-esteem to be a lot stronger than it is. Now we flip over to a short scene with Heather and her sister and her brother-in-law. Remember that Heather's sister lives in Colorado, and her sister have been estranged for over 20 years because Heather's sister said, shout out to everybody, I had fun on the Mormon religion, and said that that life was not for her. And because of that, the whole family, including Heather, turned their backs on her. I honestly felt like this was a very touching scene. I felt sorry for the both of them. I felt a little bit of annoyance at Heather, hearing how she treated her sister, hearing how her sister had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and Heather didn't even reach out to her sister when she got sick because Heather was still upset at her sister saying no to the faith and marrying a man who wasn't Mormon. There's a part of me that feels like if I were Heather's sister, I would have been like, F you, now you want to talk to me because you're no longer Mormon, and now, you're living your life and having a good time, and that's why you want to reconnect now. But then a part of me understands why Heather's sister Nancy does want to have a relationship, because that does have to be hard being estranged from your family. So I definitely get it. And hearing how Heather was like the goody two-shoes in the family, she was the perfect Mormon. She did everything that her parents wanted her to do. When she said that she went to BYU because the parents wanted her to go there, she went on mission trips because she was unmarried, and how the dad wanted her to do it. And then when she said that she actually wanted to move to DC for a time, and her dad said, don't do it because the women there are career-minded and you need to focus on finding a husband and having a family. So because he said that, she didn't move to DC, and she ended up marrying her ex-husband and having 3 kids. And then when her sister admitted that she was jealous of Heather and how close Heather was to their dad, and she wasn't, and then she said, but I think that you were also jealous of me, because despite me being estranged from all of you guys, I had the courage to be free and live my life the way I wanted to live it. And you didn't do that. And it was a very touching moment between the two of them. I liked how they were able to get everything out on the table and just be open and just tell their truth. I just find it fascinating and very comical that Heather was this perfect Mormon who did everything by the book. She was willing to cut off her sister for over 20 years. And now that she's no longer Mormon, not only is she having the time of her life, but now she's trying to single-handedly bring down the Mormon church as a whole. Like the way she was congratulating her niece a few episodes ago for leaving the church and no longer being Mormon, I was screaming like how the tables turn. We move on to the next scene. Everybody's packing up to go back to Salt Lake City. Meredith has booked them a private jet. And then, of course, Lisa's complaining about how she wished that Meredith had gotten a bigger private jet. I said, Lisa, if you don't shut up. Lisa is very obnoxious. Like, I don't think I say that enough, but that is one obnoxious woman. So now we see Lisa, Meredith, and Jenny talking. They're discussing last night. Lisa's upset with how things ended between her and Meredith. And it's like, well, girl, you're the one who got nasty and left, okay? So let's not. Now Meredith gets emotional and she starts crying. She says that she deeply regrets telling Whitney anything about what Cameron told her at the Fresh Wolf event. She feels like she's betrayed Mary's trust and she should have kept quiet. Then she adds that this is what happened to her last year when everybody was talking about her and Seth's marriage, but not coming to her directly. So she's like, I can't have this happen to Mary, so I'm going to fix this and make things right. So now we see all the ladies gather into the living room, and Meredith starts off the conversation by saying that she wanted to have a quick chat before they leave. She continues with, she wants all of them to leave this trip with good feelings about each other, and how since they're all friends, everybody needs to support each other and stop talking behind each other's backs. So now we see Jenny in her confessional say that she thinks that that's kind of hypocritical of Meredith to say that, because Meredith is the one who got a PI on Jen. But Jenny, your point doesn't really have a leg to stand on, because Meredith's child was being harassed and Meredith wanted to know what was going on and who was behind it. So I feel like what Meredith did regarding Jen, that wasn't anything that I feel was out of the ordinary. I think that any concerned parent would have done something similar. So now Meredith apologizes to Whitney and Mary. She says that she never should have said anything about what Cameron told her at the event. So you know that Whitney's always going to put 2 and 2 together. And she's like, look, at the end of the day, it's obvious that Lisa brought Cameron into the mix so that we would talk about it, plant the seeds, and that she would walk away with her hands clean. So now Lisa's getting super defensive like she always does anytime her sorry plan is found out. So she's like, so it's my fault now? It's my fault that Cameron is on the board of Foster Utah? It's always my fault. I'm always the one being blamed. It's time for you to take accountability for yourself. I am not responsible for any of this. And it's like, Lisa, yes, you are. You knew what you were doing by having Cameron at your event. You knew what you were doing when you had Cameron mic'd up. That was all a setup. And Lisa, I don't know why you insist on acting like the viewers can't see through your plan. It was clear as day that you brought Cameron on camera with a mission, and that was to take down Mary, and you know it. Like, let's not lie. So while Lisa is going off the rails, Meredith is calming her down. She's like, Lisa, you're at a 10 right now, calm down. I'm gonna need you to take it down to a 2. Then Meredith turns to Mary and she says, Mary, the floor is all yours. Feel free to say whatever you want to say. Get everything off of your chest. So Mary starts it off by saying that first and foremost, she doesn't owe Nan, one of those ladies, an explanation about her life. I said, well, way to start it off, Mary. Now, mind you, while Mary said that, she's looking directly at Whitney. So Whitney is feeling the shade, and she's like, Mary, why are you staring just at me, not at anybody else? Mary says, because I want to. Then Mary says, and another thing, if I'm not in the room to speak up for myself, then y'all should not be speaking about me, period. So now Whitney interjects and says, but Mary, when I tried to bring this up to you last night, you walked away and went to sleep. So, of course, Mary's getting irritated, and she dismisses Whitney. She's like, girl, you're just so exhausting. So, of course, Whitney's upset, and she turns to look at Heather. So, I don't know if Mary was talking to Whitney or Heather when she said this, but she's like, bring your head down because you're nobody. So now Heather jumps in and says, girl, you've been so mean to Whitney for like no reason. Like, I don't understand why you can't see that. Now Mary snaps at Heather and she's like, well, when Whitney stood up and yelled at me at my own event, you don't think that that was wrong? Like, that's not a double standard right there? Heather claps back and says, Mary, you were nasty to Whitney the entire time at your cooking class. So what are you really trying to say? So now Mary says that she meant nothing by it and how she actually does care about Whitney, but how everybody's not going to be best friends. Now, Mary, here's where I have to get on you because you're sitting here making no sense. You've been saying for the past few episodes that you can't stand Whitney and that you have no desire to be her friend again. So now for you to say, well, I actually do care about Whitney and I meant nothing by what I was saying to her at my cooking class, like, you can't backtrack like that. Between Whitney begging for your friendship and now you going back and forth about how you feel about Whitney, it's exhausting. So now Heather says to Mary, when you and Lisa came into my room last night, that wasn't the message that I got. Because remember how Heather said to Whitney earlier in the day that Mary had said that she was not friends with Whitney. Now Whitney turns to Lisa and she confronts her about how she switched up on Mary. She says, we were talking and then all of a sudden you go down and have a talk with Mary and now you completely switch your opinion. Like, how does that go? Then Whitney says to Lisa how Lisa was trying to find a crack in Whitney and Mary's friendship and how she used this to get Mary upset with Whitney. So now Lisa's like, No, I didn't. You have to stop blaming me for everything, okay? I am not a master manipulator, okay? Like, I don't have this remote control controlling everybody and their emotions. And I am so tired of you weaponizing your words against me and saying how I make you feel less than, how I make you feel not good enough, and I have no power over how you feel. Think the best of me, not the worst of me, or else I start thinking the worst of you. Lisa, you are still a master manipulator. There's no way around it. And I love how Whitney is determined to let you have it every single time because Whitney sees right through you. So Lisa's still hyped up. She's yelling. Meredith calms her down yet again. And then Heather brings up the gift. So Mary's like, why would you bring that up, Heather? Like, that was nobody's business. So Whitney's curious and she wants to know, what did all the ladies receive from Mary? So Jenny says that Mary gifted her a pair of Christian Louboutin boots, which were $1,300. Meredith says that Mary got her a Louis Vuitton hat, which was $1,200. Lisa received a Chanel clutch, which was $2,050. Yes, I did write down all the prices. And Heather says that she received a Louis Vuitton bag for $5,750. I said, oh, I know that's right. But like I said, on Twitter, Heather confirmed that she gave the bag back. Oh, and did you guys catch when Lisa said to Heather, I was laughing when Mary said to you that this is your first real bag. I was like, was that shade that Heather buys fake bags? Heather, please set the record straight on that. I really hope you're not out here buying fakes. Your money is too long to be buying fakes, okay? You come from Mormon royalty. Your ex-husband was Mormon royalty, damn near a billionaire. Your beauty labs bringing in $20 million a year, and your alimony checks from your ex-husband are quite large. So I really hope you're not out here, girl. And also the fact that you didn't confirm or deny when she said that, I was like, now sis, you better not be out here with a fake purse. But I digress. Whitney is visibly hurt and upset that she did not receive a gift. And she says to Mary, I'm not hurt that you didn't get me a gift. I'm just hurt because it shows that we're not friends. I said, now, Whitney, I have to call BS on that because you know that you're hurt that you did not get a nice gift from Mary. Because who doesn't want an extra pair of Louboutins or another Louis Vuitton hat or wallet or purse or Chanel clutch, okay? You were kind of salty about it, sis. It's okay. You don't have to lie about it. So Mary goes on to say that the reason for that was because Whitney was talking about her. So I'm like, it's such a shame how Lisa has really gotten into Mary's ear and Mary can't see the true manipulation. Lisa is the one who started this whole entire thing. So now Heather interjects and she says, look, this has been a very traumatic week. And Mary, I just have a few questions about this whole ordeal that I like to get off of my chest. So now Mary says to Heather, but you didn't have any questions for Jen, so why do you have questions for me? Now, Mary makes a very good point because that's very true. Jen is in the news. Jen has been indicted on federal charges. Jen is facing quite a few decades in jail because of this. And Heather made it very clear that she was going to stick beside Jen till the wheels fall off and be a great friend to Jen. So I do think that it is a bit hypocritical for Heather to have all this smoke for Mary, but not for Jen. And Jen has done a lot worse to you than Mary has. Jen was calling you a racist all last year. She was talking about your appearance. I mean, she was really dogging you out about the way you looked. And for you to forgive that and say that you want to stick beside her, while she's being charged on federal charges, I do think that it is a bit hypocritical. I'm just saying. I think that you need to keep the same energy with Jen and Mary. So now Heather goes on to say, look, I just don't believe in blind allegiance in friendships. So Mary's like, well, you don't think that Jen is manipulating you? Because she is. And again, I have to agree. Because for you to say that you don't believe in blind allegiance to people, it seems like you're giving Jen that allegiance and that loyalty. So now Mary starts going off about how she could have manipulated Heather too. So Heather's like, when? Like, what are you talking about? Mary says at her cooking class. So Heather's like, I mean, Mary, I was gone off of the bolognese sauce and 3 bottles of wine. So Mary says, girl, you're always on something. Like, you always need somebody to drive you home because you're always drunk. So now Heather is really upset by that. And so she gets up and is like, you know what? I'm done with this conversation. I don't want to talk to none of y'all. Heather says in her confessional that Mary has some nerve to nitpick at her always being drunk when she has not said anything about Mary being married to her step-grandfather and the way she treats people so poorly. As Heather's walking downstairs to her room, Lisa and everybody else wants her to come back up and join the conversation so they can finish it and hash things out. So now Heather screams halfway down the stairs how Lisa told them last night that Cameron claims that he mortgaged his home and gave Mary and her church $300,000. So now Whitney goes off to find Heather, and she goes to her room and finds Heather is just sobbing. Heather is so angry by this whole thing that she does not even want to get on the private plane and fly home with them. She wants to go on a separate flight because she is just so angry. Heather goes on to say how this has been the weekend from hell and how she wishes that the feds had come and arrested her. I was screaming. Like, I was literally in tears when she said that. I said, Nash, you are wishing for the feds to come and pick you up. So now Whitney walks back upstairs and she lets everybody know that her and Heather won't be flying on the plane with them. They're going to be on a separate flight. So Meredith is really upset hearing this because she's the one who chartered the plane in the first place. And she's like, no, I just want you guys to resolve this. Like, I don't want you guys to not be on the plane with us. So Whitney says, no, we're good. We're going to take a separate flight. Like, we're just tired. We're really upset that nobody is copying to what they said and how two-faced you all are being. So now Meredith is like, I'm not being two-faced. I owned and copped to everything that I said. So now Mary gets really emotional. She starts crying. Meredith runs over to comfort her, and Mary is just going off. She's so livid. She's like, I'm a woman of God, okay? I believe in God. I believe in deliverance. And the fact that you guys would even lump me in with a criminal like Jen is insulting. So now Mary stands up and she starts yelling about how she was born into money, how she didn't ask for this lifestyle, how she didn't ask for her inheritance. It just came to her. I said, now, girl, that inheritance came through you marrying your step-grandfather, but okay. And did y'all hear Mary when she said about Heather and Heather talking and running her mouth with her chubby self? And everybody just looked at Mary like, Mary, you do realize this is going to be on TV, right? Like, the viewers are about to eat you up for that comment. Like, you do know that. So now Mary walks over to the kitchen. She's still crying, and Lisa goes over to comfort her. So now she's telling Lisa about how she worships the God in her and how, again, it's just not fair for them to lump her in with Jen. She goes on to say how she didn't ask for this lifestyle, how she's been dealing with all this ridicule for her entire life. So now Mary says when she sees Jen, she sees a thug, almost like the Mexican people and the drug cartels. I was like, Mary, girl, Mary, I need you to think before you speak. That was very insulting for you to say that. That was more than a poor choice of words. I was like, really, Mary? You can't articulate yourself better than that? All you had to say was, when I see Jen, I think of a thug. That's what you should have said. Just keep it at that and just keep it moving. But all this extra stuff, I was like, girl, that was just so ignorant and so unnecessary for you to say. So all the ladies are getting ready to leave the house, And as Mary's coming down the stairs, she says under her breath that she wants her purse back. So Mary says, Heather, for you to walk off on this conversation, that was very hurtful to me. So now Heather says very dryly, well, I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt, Mary. So Mary's pissed and she walks away and she calls Heather a liar and a weirdo.
You know what? This is too much.
Mary, you're the weirdest one in this group, calling Heather weird. So we see Lisa, Mary, Meredith, and Jenny on their way to the private plane. And then Heather and Whitney are back at the house looking up flights to get back to SLC. That's where the episode ends. And let me tell you that this episode was something else. I mean, there was just so much craziness at every single turn. Y'all, I am curious to see how the rest of this season plays out between Lisa and Meredith, and then Lisa, Heather, and Whitney, and then Lisa and Jen. And then also Lisa and Mary, because you see Lisa getting into it with Mary in the mid-season trailer. So I feel like the rest of this season, Lisa is going to be exposed as the two-faced hypocrite that she truly is. And I cannot wait. And I really want to see Angie back on our screens again. I loved Angie. I thought that she really made a great introduction to SLC, and she deserves more than a friend of the show title. Another fantastic episode. Cannot wait for next Sunday, because next Sunday looks like it's going to be good and lit, and I will be there with bells on. But y'all, thank you so much for watching my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.